So your Rookie of the Year, Kirill Kaprizov, and your flow could use an assist. Check into Great Clips. You'll get in and out with a cut that's pure money for less cash. They don't call you dollar bill for nothing. We got you, and you got this. Great Clips, official hair salon of the NHL.
Joining us now, as he does every Monday from the Bob McCown podcast, the former executive producer of Hockey Night in Canada, it's our buddy John Shannon. How you doing, John?
Better, not as good as the people in Vancouver today, I don't think.
No. How about this? Your reaction. Andrei Kuzmenko is a Vancouver Canuck.
Well, I guess that travel log that he presented last week was pretty effective. And that maybe we should be thanking not only the Aquilini money and Jim Rutherford and Patrick Allvin, we should be thanking the Vancouver weather for getting him signed in Vancouver. That's a real positive for the hockey club. And to me, you know, Matt, when you and Blake and I have talked about this the last couple of weeks, maybe the month, we've been waiting for Jim Rutherford and Patrick Allvin to put their stamp on this organization on the ice. Perhaps this is the first of many stamps we're going to see.
What have you heard about him as a player, John? What are the scouting reports and notes that you get on him?
Just that the competitive level. You know, we make great assumptions about Russian players at times, fair or unfair. But this guy's the real deal, and I'll tell you what, he can shoot the puck. That's the one thing everybody talks about. And when we talk about great Russians that shoot pucks, man, that's a pretty good class of people when you think of the Tarasenkos and Panarins and Ovechkins that can shoot the puck better than most in the NHL. Work ethic and his finish are the two things that are going to jump out at Vancouver Canuck fans.
What do you think this does for the Canucks management group? I mean, Jim Rutherford obviously has been busy in 6 months assembling a front office and making changes behind the scenes. But in terms of impacting the roster, he and Patrick Allvin really haven't done a lot. They kind of, remain status quo at the trade deadline because the team was playing well. But, what kind of feather in a cap is this in terms of the recruitment process? Do you think that they were able to land the guy that they had kind of had their eye on all along here?
The one thing, Jeff, I would say is that every time, and Vancouver is, I think, one of the three toughest markets in hockey to work. And what this does for the credibility of this management group is to say, trust us. We're going to do some things on draft day, on day 2 of the draft, at free agency, maybe later in the summer. We're going to do things that you're going to say, well, why'd you do that? I liked him. I like that player. But if you stick with the program and stick with us, we're going to have a quality franchise when the puck drops that second week in October. So I think more than anything, this gives that group a little more license to say, we're in charge, we have a plan, it's going to work. And this, to me, lets Vancouver Canuck fans say, okay, we trust you. So I think... this isn't the first date between the fans and this management group. This is like date number 3, and it's getting serious. That's exactly right.
Well, the other thing this does, because he comes in on an entry level contract, is this opens up a world of possibilities for the Vancouver Canucks in terms of even wanting to move players out, knowing potentially you have a replacement. We're thinking Brock Besser there, but also keep the group intact and maybe see if you can make a better run towards the Stanley Cup playoffs next year. But, you tell me, John, and I think this administration is taking a longer term view. Do you think this would change anything with regards to their outlook of 2022, 2023? Not
one bit. Because I don't think we all know the plan. They know their plan. They know what they want to do. But we're going to get a better indication of that in 3 weeks in Montreal and then after the 13th. But I think that this is building block stuff for them. This is them saying, you know what, we need to get, Kuzmenko under contract. Now we know we can play with a guy like Besser a little bit. So I think this is just part of the plan that's supposed to be going forward. And you know what? They'll be hoisting a glass of champagne celebrating it tonight.
Absolutely. And now it begs the question, who does he play with here in Vancouver? Pettersson, Horvat, his fellow Russian, Podkolzin?
Well, one would. I'll tell you what. Podkolzin's better. He better brush up on his English, because I know he's pretty good, but they need to be better. And it's always better to have two nationals, two internationals than just one, in order to create that bond and create some sort of friendship away from the ice, because that's one of the big challenges in our sport and in any sport right now, is making sure that when the guy leaves the rink, he has someone to talk to.
Yeah.
So I think it really helps that Podkolzin's here as well. I think that's a big factor.
So it opens the door, of course, then for Malkin to
absolutely. And Nikita Tramkin coming back. We learned that with Tramkin. One Russian is not necessarily a good thing. And Vasily needed a translator himself this past year, but made so much progress in English that maybe he becomes the translator.
Well, that was kind of my point. Maybe they can make that work.
Well, John, the Canucks land their guy. The Philadelphia Flyers landed theirs over the weekend here. John Tortorella is back. Torts is coaching again in the National Hockey League. And on some levels, John Tortorella and the city of Philadelphia seem like a perfect fit. But I do wonder, is Torts the right fit for this group of Philadelphia Flyers at this stage of their competitive cycle?
A lot to digest there, Jeff. Here's the one thing I would tell you. I think the public persona of what John Tortorella is and the private dressing room perspective of what John Tortorella is are totally different. The one thing I think that's pretty obvious is that John always requests and requires and demands accountability. He's very direct. But there's a ton of players that like that. One of the biggest issues I would tell you right now in Philadelphia is that word you used is accountability. There has been little or no accountability in Philadelphia. The image of the tough love that is Tortorella and the toughness is the Philadelphia Flyers, that toughness in Philadelphia hasn't existed for 2 decades now. 2 decades. And what Chuck Fletcher's trying to do now, and I think, this is 2.5 years for Chuck now, he's trying to find a way to navigate through a very, very player positive perspective. And when I say player positive, is the players have run a lot of stuff there. Players have done a lot of stuff, and there's been little or no accountability. And I think that that's the thing that Tortorella is going to, we know he's going to create that accountability for the hockey club. And if if you don't perform, you don't play. That's John's rule. It's simple. It's effective. If you don't perform, you don't play, and it doesn't matter how much money you're making. And I think that's now what Flyer fans are going to see from John Tortorella. I think it's a great match. I really do. But at the same time, I think that there's a lot of people that have this assumption about Tortorella, and they're different. It's totally different than really what the private Tortorella is.
John, we know the relationship between Tortorella and Brad Shaw, the Canucks assistant coach who served as his right hand as chief lieutenant in Columbus. Shaw's also interviewed for the head coaching position with the Chicago Blackhawks. Are you hearing anything about the Canucks assistant and perhaps going to Philly or his chances in Chicago?
Well, I don't think that Brad would be allowed to make a lateral move unless they made him the assistant head coach. These guys are still under contract, and Brad came with pretty good credentials as the defenseman whisperer, but that, let's face it, that was with Travis Green as the head coach, not Bruce Boudreau, and you have to wonder what that relationship is going to be like. So from that perspective, if there's going to be an elevated position for Shaw in Philadelphia, then he could probably get out of his Vancouver deal. And as far as Chicago is, I think Chicago is just taking its time and kicking tires and talking to everybody. The list of people that have been interviewed, Kirk Muller, I believe, has been on that list as well. There's 5 or 6 people, and the Blackhawks are taking their time. They still have Derek King with the interim tag, and he's being interviewed for the job as well. So I'm not sure how hasty the Blackhawks have been. Things have changed in Chicago so much. in the last 18 or 19 months, then they're very cautious about any move they make. I would be surprised if we hear anything this week about Bradshaw like we're going to hear about some other coaches.
Is that Woodcroft? Is that DeBoer?
I think, yeah, both will get done. The Woodcroft deal will get him, I think, at least a minimum of 3 years in Edmonton. Both sides have said, yes, it'll get done this week. At least that's the hope. I've friends within the Dallas organization say, yes, that the Pete DeBoer deal will get done this week as well. And he'll get there for at least 4 years.
Wow.
There was always thinking that Gary didn't like individual teams to sort of upstage the Stanley Cup final, and yet we're starting to see some of these coaches. I mean, there's so many teams that have to make decisions and ultimately announcements, I suppose, about their coaches. I don't know if that's still a thing, but also, John, the NHL Awards Show is tomorrow in the midst of the Stanley Cup final. Who thought that was a good idea?
Well, I was actually joking with somebody last week, Jeff, about this. So we have had a televised award show for, 40 years, 45 years. I remember going to them in the early 80s in Toronto. And every other sports league I looked at, they were jealous. They were jealous that we had an award show. Sports leagues talk amongst themselves, and they all were. First of all, they were always jealous of the amount of trophies the NHL had and how good the trophies looked and what they stood for. Our jewelry collection was better than anybody else's. But then the award show worked its way, and what's happened now is the NBA has tried to do an award show. The NFL now does an award show Super Bowl week. And now what we're trying to do is we're trying to duplicate the NFL duplicating us. We're trying to reinvent ourselves. I do think that they thought that this would be a good way to create some interest on the off day in the Stanley Cup final. There's only 5 awards being given out tomorrow night. Whether it works or not will be interesting. I can tell you right now, the ratings for an award show on Canadian television, it'll get 500,000 people. You can have the greatest entertainment act in the world, you'll get 500,000 people. And for an award show on the off day between the Stanley Cup final games 3 and 4, you'll get 500,000 people. So in the end, it won't make much difference. And I think they're just trying to create interest where they have a captive audience. And whether it works or not, if they like it, we'll see it next year. If not, we won't.
Yeah, and of course, scheduling this year, as you've told us in the past, all a little bit different, right, with the pandemic. So got to fit some things in here before the draft and free agency. John, we'll let you get about your day. Belated Happy Father's Day to you, my friend, and we'll catch up next Monday.
Thank you, boys. Good talking to you.